Yeah, recording started. Yeah, I was like halfway down the train and like here I am recording. But anyways, better late than never. So our belief system, we're seeing the things that are happening around us through this belief system. That is our filter, not necessarily the fact of what really is. And our belief system is informed by our past, the things that, whether it is a limiting belief, whatever it is. Maybe we learned, we grew up, we learned, if you want good, it's a fair run. How many people can identify with that? You know what I mean? And there are some negative ones, in terms of children must be seen and not heard. And there are unending belief systems. Some I vividly took on as my truths. I heard it from either my grandmother, or my mom, or things that I've taken on to be my truth. And I hear myself repeating it and never question it really, just kind of own it until now. And so our belief system drives us because our thoughts are then this interpretation because we see through this lens. And our brain converts our thoughts into feelings, into emotions, through the production of hormones. And then guess what? The behavior, right? We act based on how we feel, what we thought, how we feel. Everything has a connection. There are associated feelings with a particular type of thoughts and associated behavior. And then the cycle continues. But hear what? The cycle does not just continue with us, because when we are behaving, either saying something or not saying it, when we're doing something or not doing it, we are then sending out stimuli into the environment that is then triggering somebody's cycle like this. They then formulate a thought based on what they're hearing or not hearing. And they're looking at you through their belief system. And so the interpretation goes on, which is why understanding energy is so powerful, because energy attracts like energy. So if we are in a state of, severe stress, the misery likes company shows up, right? Because energy attracts like energy. It's natural that if you are going through this cycle of stress, the thoughts, the feelings, the behavior, you're sending out those stimuli, it's going to attract that type of energy from the people around you. I have a whole session dedicated to that, understanding that clearly. And so what I want you to get is that feelings are natural. Your behavior and your thought are a choice. So feelings are natural. They speak to us. We feel them. Sometimes they're big emotions. They trigger a response. So let's not spend our time trying to change our feelings. Just don't feel that way. How many times have you said to somebody, all right, just change your feeling. Just feel, cheer up, whatever the case is. It's not so easy, especially if you have children, right? And they're in this happy mood and you're like, come on, cheer up, be happy. The feelings are natural, but we have the power to change our thoughts and our behavior. And so identity shapes our choice, right? There's a lot more I can say about that, but the truth is who we are, our identity will shape our choice. And so the strongest force in the human personality is the ability to stay consistent with how we define ourselves to be. And so who we define ourselves to be, are we the one defining it? Or we're just, it's just, we're byproduct of our past, which is natural. When do you want to be the one to steer that, to change that message about being scared, being self-aware? What was that? Dissatisfied? I can't remember it was dissatisfaction. I started the word, didn't finish it. When do you change the narrative? Because, we naturally occur until we're able to recognize, but we can take off this lens, this belief system. We can evaluate it. We can change it. And so you defined, how do you go about this process of really uncovering who you are? Right? It's not a mystery. Searching is a great place to start. Ask yourself some questions. What are your top values? What's important to you? How do people experience you? How do they describe you? What would your close friends, your colleagues say, your partner? Your children, what would they say about you? How are you on your good days versus your bad days? How much control do you have over who you are being in each moment? And so this wonderful activity, and I will share it in LinkedIn after, it's something that you can do in your journal, write it, create it. And this will be powerful if you're able to do this activity before our next session, which is all about energy. And that will be in 2 weeks. But hey, I'll talk a little bit about that in a few. And so do this activity. Identify key descriptors of who you are. Circle the 5 most important words on the list for you. What connects with you at this stage of your life, not the last decade or the last year. Convert your 5 most important descriptors into nouns and take them and make I am statements. Remember I said, what follows I am is powerful. And so you rank the statements in order of importance to you, and that's it. It starts your process of choosing who you want to be at this stage in your life, not just, what your values were, but what is serving you at this stage of your life. And I say it because, sometimes we think our values are there and they're fixed and they're unshakable, but the truth is they're not. And I share this with you. Respect was big for me. For most of my life, respect was a big value, big. It was probably my number one. It was very important for me to not be disrespectful, and that may have come up from the impact of me having been disrespected. And so somebody's on mute. Are you trying to say something or you just need to mute? All right. And so respect was big for whatever reason that made respect a big value for me.
Right.
Okay, hold a second. That could be me. All right. And so as I went through my personal life, my career, relationships, my personal relationship, I was not the one to humiliate in public. I am not going to blow the gasket. People say, boy, she's just so soft, and I mean, she's going to allow, especially in relationship, him to say that to her or what. For me, it was just very important to not disrespect someone. I don't want a person to feel disrespected. I know what it feels like, but respect was so big a value for me that, it blinded some other values. But as I went through, different areas of my life, especially my career, I recognized that respect was so big that I had a very important value. I spoke about it all the time. I listed it as number one in many stages of my life, but it really was not being served. Authenticity. For me, being true to yourself is very important. And I gravitate towards people who I think, are being authentic, and I really value truth. But the truth is, my value of being respectful was completely overshadowing my authenticity. Because in moments I would hold my tongue, I would not express. I was not, because I felt like, okay, if I really express how I really feel, I may be infringing on this value. And guess what? When I was drawn to this to really confront my values, I'm like, okay, you are going to be deprioritized. I know I'm already respectful enough, but you have to, for this stage of my life, authenticity will serve me more, will serve my relationships more, and will serve even the people around me far more. And so, yeah, you choose. Sometimes we have to reorder our values when they are not serving us in this season. Transformation is ongoing. And so, how are your actions aligned to those values? That's when you check yourself. Okay, if I really, this is who I want to be, how do I show up being this to me in my relationships? How am I being this loving, whatever your value is, in moments of stress? What gets in the way of being you? So this is your chosen you. You're choosing this. but knowing what is happening underneath it and what could potentially sabotage it is very important, because that's telling to you. The truth is, what got you here won't get you there. And there's a whole book about it, right? What got you here are precious lessons. You have learned a lot. And so for some people, they're in the middle of a chapter, they're starting a new chapter, they're ending a chapter. Know where you are in your chapter and what's next. And again, this Bible verse spoke to me. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Renewing of your mind. We don't have to be any of this that's on our old list if it's not serving you in this season. You choose. And then another powerful quote, this probably that's unknown in terms of who wrote it. He said, "You can never rise above the opinion of yourself." How does that speak to you? Right? There are a lot of writings about self-talk, right? And what it says is that 95% of the messages we tell ourselves are focused on what we do not want. The scenarios, the stories about what we don't want to happen, the person that we don't want to show up being. So we have 95% of negative self-talk often. So if we have in one day 2,000 messages, which is far more, I think it's more 200,000 thoughts being created about ourselves, majority of those thoughts are about what we do not want to happen, driven by the fear factor. And so with 5% carrying us through, it makes sense that survival may be how we experience life. And for persons who are thriving, they have started this whole process. How do I flip this switch? How can I increase this 5%? Make this 5% about positive self-talk greater to serve me. Because as a man, think it's so easy. And so if our thoughts are focused on what we do not want to happen, it is natural that what is manifested in our life is exactly that, what we do not want to happen. So how are you investing your most valuable real estate? Your mind. And so sometimes we have to do this. We have to just clear the canvas. Release the things that, maybe held us back. And even the things that brought you thus far. And choose. Powerfully choose at this stage of your life. How do you want to show up? Who do you want to be? Not the roles you play, regardless of your role or your state in life. Who you are being shines through that. And so it doesn't matter what you're doing. It could be this job that, oh my God, I just need to get out of this job. Your purpose, your being shines through. You can be anything. You can live purposefully in that job while it lasts, because there is a lesson to learn from it. It is serving a purpose at this stage of your life. It's preparing you for the next chapter. The quicker you learn that lesson, it's the quicker the next chapter begins. And so this is a very interesting concept for me, right? So the 95% rule, and this one is not about the self-talk, right? It is saying that 95% of our mind is the subconscious mind. 5% is conscious. What is that saying? It is saying that for 95% of our brain activity is really doing things that are subconscious. Of course, the breathing, the moving, the walking, all those things that are very automated, right? The digestion, all of those things. Your brain, different parts of your brain is focused on getting those things done. 5% is what we give to showing up, exchange, conversation, being present in the moment, get the job done, whatever the task is at hand. The 5% take us through that. So if you remember the belief system, if you are wired already, your belief system, you have a pattern of doing, of being, of responding, of feeling, the natural part. If those things are already set, right? When people make changes, when the 5% of your mind say, I want this, this is what I want at this. I want to lose 5 pounds. I want to lose 10, 15, 20 pounds. I want to do this. I want to start this new opportunity. And you go after it. And then before you know it, 3 months on the line, 6 months on the line, it's not working. Why? Because your brain is really having like a conflict. You have a pattern already set and you're saying, what is new? What are you doing? Okay, this is not normal. Okay, this is, your brain is like struggling to adapt. What is going on? Your mind, prefrontal cortex, is saying, I'm making this decision for myself. But then there's some sabotage happening because you have some patterns that are not supporting your new activity. So being aware of how the brain works is powerful. Your brain is programmable. That's just a fact. We don't choose that if it's programmable or not programmable. It's just knowing that it is, which is why you would have learned about conditional learning and all of those things, how to really condition your mind. And so recognizing that your brain is programmable. What does that mean for you? Is it a holy snap, crap, I am doomed? Okay, that makes sense. That sabotage gets in the way. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thanks for the comments. At some point, Georgia, I'm going to probably at some point pause and share some top line questions or comments with me, just so I run through this, right? So is that holy snap for you? Like, oh gosh, I am doomed. Or is that holy snap? My brain is programmable. So you choose. Do you jump in with excitement, or you're like, oh my God, quiver under fear? And so this very important point to share. Our brain does not know the different or physiological response to stress or fear is the same physiological response to excitement. The heart palpitating, maybe a little sweating happening, right? The hormones that the cortisol that the body produces, some adrenaline, if there's like this on top of energy. So the physiological response is pretty much the same. However, you know what's different? The thoughts are different. And because the thoughts are our core and they show up in how we are being, the outcome will be different. So when your body is in that heightened stage of fear and anxiety, like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, it's a powerful flip that can be made is, how do I switch out of this fear to excitement? And it's normal that what people tend to do, you feel anxious, you feel anxious, you feel anxious, and you're like, calm yourself down, calm yourself down. But they're like two opposing ends in terms of feeling. And so when we are able to wire ourselves to say, oh my God, this is already happening to your body. And trust me, the value of having adrenaline pumping through your blood is valuable. We'll get to that in subsequent session. How do you use this hyper mode to your advantage? And so I offer you just, the next time you feel overwhelmed, try to, rather than calm down, to switch in an excitement mode. Anchor a thought about what excites you. And you flip from that fear to excitement. And let me know how that experience was. And so I invite you to do this activity. What was your old identity? Who were you being? Trisha shared, I'm scared. I am scared. Self-aware. What was your old identity? How does it need to be expanded to create the life you desire and deserve? Who are you at your core? What is your new identity? Write those down in your journal, in your activity book. I want to hear the shares at the beginning of our next session. Send me an email. What's the switch? And so as I try to wrap up, right? I may review these for future, but these are things to be aware of as you are thinking about, okay, to what extent am I in my own way? First, you have to start with who am I, right? Knowing is more than half the battle. Einstein says a well-defined problem is 90% solved. So this process of uncovering, of raising your consciousness, becoming more aware, but also stepping into that space of, as you seek to create this new identity, what are the things do you need to focus on? And what I ask you to do is, as I kind of run through the five, pick one or two and try to lock in, create a plan around it, right? 5 to thrive. Your physiology is very important, your physiological state. How are you? How are you caring for yourself? What's your physical health like? Are you doing the things that is required to give you the energy that you need for this stage of your life? What is getting in the way? What new identity physiologically do you need to serve you for this next chapter? Your focus. What takes up that real estate of your mind? Are you focusing on the things that you do not want? Which is natural. Remember, we are wired like that. It's how the brain works. Or are you being deliberate to switch those, to think about what you do want? Recognizing that our thoughts manifest into who we are being. How do you switch your focus? How do you recognize in a moment that, hey, this is not serving me? I have to switch. Anchor. Create a powerful thought for yourself as an anchor thought and have that aligned to the next chapter, what you want. And whenever you find yourself going in that space of being scared, of being self-aware, what are other people going to think about me? Okay, am I really where I want to be? No, it's not serving you. How do you anchor yourself with a powerful thought that serves you for this chapter? Your language. We talk about self-talk, positive, negative self-talk, and how, one, speak it out. Talk to yourself in the mirror. Give yourself an affirmation. And there are several, different practices around giving yourself an affirmation. Mel Robbins, who's a speaker, author, etc., she has the high five thing, giving yourself a high five for whatever reason. Hey, you pulled through this. Hey, you did that. You handled this. Good going. You're up and you're ready to go. Whatever it is. Language. Choose your language. Be aware of the language that you use. How do you shift the natural pattern of this 95% negative self-talk to positive self-talk? Affirming yourself. Think about the meanings that we create from the situation. What are the stories that we're telling ourselves? How is your belief system, the messages from your past, how are they influencing how you are experiencing life? Not because something happened in the past means it will happen again. How do you shift those meanings? How do you create meaning that will serve you in this phase? And then your state, your mind, body, and your spirit. And we'll do more work around this full whole state of understanding who you are, being in each moment. And when we talk about energy, it gives you the ability to identify where you are, where other people show up. And that's powerful. So as you go through this process, and even if you pick two of these boxes that we mentioned before, whether it's your state, your focus, your language, the meaning, your physiology, and these are 5 steps that you can take to claim your new identity. If you're able to really create that for yourself. 1, understand the power of identity. If we have any marketers, in the space, we know what branding does, right? The power of your identity, who you say you are, your I am. Understand the power of that I am. You know, we have seen the Coca-Cola, the Pepsi, the battle globally. We have had our own, you know, the battle locally. Just reflecting, thinking about this whole shift when Red Stripe had shifted from a short bottle. Of course, I'm integrating my past experiences, but shifted from the stubby bottle, wanted to shift from the stubby bottle to a long neck bottle for whatever reason. If you can't connect, it makes sense. But the point is that change in identity, persons rejected that because for them it was so different. So the identity to the brand, yeah, though it may not have been functional, but the brand is so identified with these qualities of this particular bottle. And when there are shifts, it means something. So you now need to understand the power of your identity. How has your lived identity impacted you? And when you're thinking about the areas that you want to shift in, recognize what that means, that change. What does it mean for you? And know that, yeah, some people might not respond open arms initially. But defining it, owning it, being clear about it, knowing the impact is powerful. Then create and articulate your quality. What is it gonna be? Who are you being? Why is this important for you? And then you practice, you communicate it consistently to yourself, to the people in your relationship, and then you live it, and then you share it, right? So what's next? We are wrapping up on the hour of 8 o'clock, and I apologize if people need to hop off. I completely get it, but I do want to open for any questions. You know, say if you are not able to stick around, that's fine. Just think about what stood out for you. We're starting this journey of raising consciousness so that you can be in a position of power to make choices about your life, how you show up, and what is going to serve you at this stage of your life. Recognize what's, you know, everything is at odds. You are literally having to wage a war on your own brain to repattern, to create new programs that serve you, to shift the talk, the self-talk that is not serving you. Hi, Trisha. Unmute and
Hi, Talisa. I don't want to dominate the conversation.
Share this benefit in sharing.
So what stood out for me is that when you asked first, you know, who are you? And the answer to the question, when I reflected, that it has a lot to do with some of the stuff that's happening in my life at this point. And you know, then after, you know, you were there talking, I sat down and I said, but is this who I am? And then I'm kind of realizing that it is so layered. Like, I feel like it's so layered. Like, there is the who I am that maybe under different circumstance, I would have spoken about, you know, just being kind, being this, being that. But it's like in this situation that I am in now, or based on what's happening in my life now, this is how I feel. And it's almost as if I have allowed it to define me, if you understand what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, is this really who I am? And I'm like, but I am also that. And I'm like, so the biggest takeaway is just how we can allow moments to define us. And that if we forget at the core who we really and truly are, then it may not even allow us to do what we need to do in situations because we are being defined by the moment. And I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
So I think that was it for me, you know.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And absolutely, situations will hijack us, which is why knowing who we are, regardless of what roles we are playing, the situations that we are in, it helps us to show up in being our authentic self. So thank you for that point, and I will look forward to having more discussions around that when we talk about energy and even you understanding why situations may affect you the way that they do. All right, so Georgia, are there any questions in I see well I'm seeing
there are not questions, but there are some comments.
All right, let me read this one. How do we this is yours. How do you reconnect with who you are at your core after feeling like you've lost yourself? Hey. So it's the same, right? It's the same kind of position. When you recognize your brain is programmable, and yeah, it probably is setting you up for self-sabotage, or if you see it as, oh my God, my brain is programmable. So in this case, is that you feel like you have lost yourself. And it's natural. We go through, if not trauma, we go through life changes, parenting, many shifts. And I think that that's one of, just in my experience, that has been one of the biggest shifts. Like people just lose themselves when they kind of start that journey. Sometimes it's a big career shift and you are figuring out, oh my God, where am I? It is the most powerful place that you can be in, because now you create. Because maybe who you were before you got lost taught you some valuable lessons, and it has done its job. It has prepared you for who you now need to be. So yeah, some things may be transferred. Some things are just, your qualities, you don't want to lose them. But the opportunity is, who do you want to be? You choose. Make sense? Any other comments? All right, that's me. Focus on what happened. When you hear the conversation around energy, I mean, you may have some light bulbs. And I'm empowered African, powered by an idea that my greatness is owned by me. Your greatness, absolutely not, is owned by you. Thank you for showing up, Mr. Barkley. And everyone else who did. Yes, your greatness is completely owned by you. But yes, we do get distracted by the stuff that happens in our mind. We do get lose track of it. We think circumstances dictate who we are being. In any situation that you are in, you are able to show up, right? When you are not able to show up, there will naturally be a conflict and you will not experience any fulfillment. It doesn't matter what you do, what is the job that you're doing, the role that you're in. When you are not there, fulfillment is not going to flow through. All right. Are there any thoughts, any questions before we kind of come to a complete closure for tonight? I acknowledge I would have stolen some of your time, and I appreciate you for being here and even hanging on. Come on, let me hear some voices, some questions. This is the time to ask any questions. And let me just kind of touch on what's next.
Great, Alicia.
Yes, hi. How are you, Sheldon? What's up?
I'm doing good. I was posting a message in the group because I was asking, do you really need to find a new you, or do you really need to understand who you are? Because I was really listening to what you say, and a lot of people don't understand who they are, and that's why they try and find themselves a million times without really getting to the core who they really are. And that's why I struggle to hear people say, boy, I need to find me, when
you're there.
Really yeah.
And that makes complete sense. That process of raising your consciousness is becoming aware. So it's not like, yeah, you need to shift. People are clear that, okay, one being is not serving me, and that's very clear. But this journey of kind of raising your consciousness is about becoming aware. So yes, you first need to understand. Be curious with yourself. Understand. So which is why some of the questions are, what are your values? Understand you. How do you show up? When you're under stress, what is different? What do you want for this stage of your life? And I've not gone into any tangible goals or anything like that. That will come way down the line. Because before we are even able to step into tangible goals, a path, what's next? Until we are right at that space of understanding who we are going to show up in that brand new opportunity probably the same way, or not feeling fulfilled, even though it has all the tenets, all the things that could possibly support that fulfillment journey, because we don't understand. So yes, it starts with understanding, and which is why next week when we talk about energy, and this conversation about energy is a purely understanding yourself. What may be driving how you show up in any situation, and the whole thing around the thoughts being our core, and how they relate to the feelings that are natural and our actions, kind of explained from a continuum standpoint, and you face, all right, what could be driving you in each situation, and do the values homework, because that's it. We don't pause to ask ourselves these questions. We're not curious with ourselves. We judge a lot. We go with the flow a lot. We try to figure ourselves in a situation, how people expect us to be, and all of that. Sometimes you find fulfillment, and sometimes you lose it. You know, I've heard about a conversation of people just not feeling fulfilled. They've achieved everything on their bucket list, and the fulfillment is not there because the relationship with self is not there. Thanks for that, Sheldon. Really appreciate that question. Any other questions before we kind of wrap up for tonight? While you think about if there are any questions, I would just want to share with you that I'm going to do this session every other week on Wednesday, same time. Coming up next session time, and I'll use the same forum to share it, understanding energy. Then the following session, we'll talk about energy blocks, right? Once we understand energy, it will make sense, and we'll talk about energy blocks. We'll get into some goal setting. We'll talk about self-doubt and confidence, and really how to help ourselves navigate through that whole pattern of doubting and choosing differently and shifting, right? Everything will kind of come with some tools. And then we'll wrap that up. We will wrap that up with, where was I? Right, so once you go into goal setting, we learn about how to set meaningful goals, align with our purpose. And then we'll talk about becoming this conscious leader, right? And it says leader because we are all leaders in our own right. You know, you lead in your family, you'll probably lead in your own life. You may be leading at people, which makes it so much more important to become aware of yourself. And you may just be influencing people in different aspects of your life. You know, you may even have leadership on a wider scale, you know, as I see some names here. So understanding who you are, right? Whether it's a company you're leading, a team that you're leading, your family that you're leading, your life that you're leading, the next chapter that you're leading, really helping you to shift more powerfully in that stage of your life. So thank you, Miss Janet, dear Jonathan, Georgia, Kim, Triana, Shana, Monique, Sheldon, Simone, Calais, Newt, Anna, Tishane, Chad, really, Marsha Lee, Marsha Gay, Brenton, Trisha, Sandrine, Kamisha, Wayne, and some people drop off. I know Monique was here earlier and a few other persons were here. Thank you so much for joining. And I really hope that you join for the subsequent session because it all fits together. Do the assignment, do the values assessment, right? Pick one of those activities that you can focus. How do you become aware of your physiology, your focus, your mental state, the words, your language, your meaning, and how do you really get that in a position that is preparing you for this stage of your life, whether it's a new chapter, whether you're in the middle or the end, wherever you are, how do you really become yourself so that you are present in these moments? And so thank you all for joining and have a good rest of night. Bye.